Guten Abend und willkommen im Kunsthaus Wien. Good evening. I switched to English because Mika is here. I'm very thrilled and proud that you came to Vienna and having this exhibition and the talk with us. So welcome again to the KunstHaus Wien. My name is Barbara Horvath, and together with Sophie Haslinger, we had the great privilege to curate the exhibition Antimatter Factory by Mika Rottenberg. So again, Mika, thanks for coming here and sharing your extraordinary artistic universe. I will make a brief introduction because not all might be familiar with your works. So you were born in Buenos Aires, Argentina in 1976, which is, by the way, the same date that I was born. So you earned your Master of Fine Art in 2004 from Columbia University in New York, and where you have been based ever since. So Mika has participated in prestigious events such as the Istanbul Biennale, the Skulpturprojekte Münster in 2017, and the Venice Biennale in 2015. Her solo exhibitions have been presented in museums around the world, and her works are included in many major institutional collections. In 2019, she was awarded Germany's esteemed Kurt Schwitters Prize, which recognizes artists who have made a significant contribution to the field of contemporary art. I remember to have read in the New York Times a moment Mika Rottenberg once experienced at the Venice Biennale in 2015. Visitors were crowding into a small, overheated room where her work, No Nose Nose, was being shown. The air conditioning had failed. It was stuffy, hot, almost unbearable. While others might have been concerned, Mika simply smiled and said, I don't know if you remember, I love that they are sitting here and sweating, that they have to suffer for their pleasure. So this little anecdote captures so much of what your art is about. It is humorous, yet brutally honest. It draws us into a world that makes us laugh until we realize that we are actually laughing at the absurdity of our own reality. Her works expose the mechanisms of labor, consumption, and production in a way that is both mesmerizing and unsettling. So Mika, I always wanted to ask you, is there something here in Vienna that makes you laugh?
Well, it's interesting that they said that about the assuming that people are actually having pleasure from watching the video. So that's good for me. And, you know, I've been in this building since I arrived. I went to the opera for half an hour in the standing thing, and been to a museum, but mostly I've been on top of this beautiful building. And now it's a recommendation that every show I have will have an apartment inside the museum, because it's very
convenient.
Very convenient. They can roll out of bed and right there. So yeah.
Just wanted to start a little bit off.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about the show's title, Antimatter Factory, which is both poetic but also evocative. It suggests a place where the intangible and the seemingly impossible is manufactured. Stephen Hawking once said, we are just an advanced breed of monkeys on a minor planet of a very average star, which I really found beautiful. So in your video Spaghetti Blockchain from 2019, you seem to explore a similar interplay of the cosmic and the worldly, connecting antimatter experiments at CERN, which is the European Organization for Nuclear Research in Geneva. But you combine it with potato farming and throat singing. So how do you see these seemingly unrelated elements reflecting Hawking's vision of our place in the universe? Or what was it about CERN that was particularly intriguing for you?
Well, you know, Antimatter Factory is a real experiment at CERN. And I started thinking about this piece before I really dived deep into CERN and particle physics. But I was thinking, each work has a bit of a catalyst. So the work before Cosmic Generator, has to do with, this market in East China and and the border wall between the US and Mexico. And the exchange of goods and people, and how some goods could travel freely, and then some people and other goods could need to go underground. And thinking about connection to a land and a place. So that led me. So that was that piece, and then I started being more interested in materialism. And I think always, but the interest, this relationship between people and what we might call resources. But as some smart people have said, it's all relationships. There's no resources and user. We're all kind of participants, I guess, and it's a series of relationships. So I kind of was playing around with cosmic kind of connections, even before with Cosmic Generator, but with this piece, with Spaghetti Blockchain, thinking about matter. What is this thing that we're made out of? And it makes everything around us, and then you can dive in deep into it and find whole other dimensions and movements. And how nothing is inanimate, nothing is dead, everything has a lot of energy trapped into it, and all that. And it was extra interesting for me, because before that I was interested in this poetic Marxist way of looking at objects, the kind of dead labor or the time and touch and thought that was captured in them. So very much from a human perspective. But my thinking, and I think the world's thinking, kind of evolved in recent decade to also consider materials and non-sentient beings as potential kind of collaborators. So I think it's a shift in general in the way people kind of evolved maybe in thinking about materials, not as extractive resources, but as participants. So that led me to particle physics somehow and to CERN. And then it had 6 shapes, like this, the shape of the hexagon. So I wanted it to be these 6 kind of panels of this piece that all connect. And one of the panels was the large particle collider that is housed at CERN. So
the Antimatter Factory?
So the Antimatter Factory came later. So I really wanted to film there. So somehow I researched and I found out that they actually have an artist residency. So then I knew someone that did the residency and got into to actually do it and visit, and that was great. And we got a full access to film there, so that was really magical. And I actually came for the Large Hadron Collider, which is the reason why that whole complex was built, to find the Higgs boson, which is the smallest particle ever discovered, that supposedly does not spin. And my particle physics, even after all these conversations with physicians, or not physicians, is not, I still get it wrong. But anyway, that was really fascinating to me. But then I saw this sign that said Antimatter Factory, and there was a whole other experiment that is not the Large Hadron Collider. It's about experiment with antimatter. So I was curious about that, and I also thought that it was kind of a joke on their part to put the sign Antimatter Factory. So that's how, so we filmed there, and it was great. I think they're like artists, really, the people that do experiments there. And everything is wrapped in tinfoil, which is very strange.
Which leads me to the question, in your videos, time and space seem to collapse, creating a complete story. Sneezes, halls, and tunnels appear as space-time portals, and the characters perform, you could say, hilarious and repetitive tasks, like in a Louis Buñuel film, but more colorfully. So I found a quote by Buñuel, which I thought you might also like. The world is becoming more and more absurd, which is a term that is often used when it comes to your work. But he's saying, only I, so Buñuel, only I am still a Catholic and an atheist, thank God. Can you relate to that in your work? And do you think the world is becoming more and more absurd?
I don't know, because I haven't lived in any other time. Some things get better and some things get worse. It's definitely, there's so much knowledge and so much possibilities, but I think a lot of us could recognize that it's not really used for the right problems, unfortunately. But it's because it's chaos. Everything is chaos. People want order. It's like a human thing to want order, but there's no real order. I think there's like a lot of energy colliding and all these things, and so not to make that. You're still, an individual and part of society, both, like the same as a particle is a wave. You could be part of a system and also an individual. So not to say that one shouldn't be critical of current politics and whatever, because it's how it is and it's all chaos, so it's fine. You could still have an opinion, but also have maybe still work with that energy. Okay, how can this other kind of energy win or shift, things, so it's not so orderly. It is, as we can, I think, recognize, it's a mess.
Absolutely. But when we talked about, or when we are talking now about the space-time portals, I sometimes have the feeling that a lot of your works, they blend the real with the surreal, and they create a fantastical yet relatable worlds. So how do you balance these elements, and what attracts you to this fusion?
I think this the non-binary is something that's interesting. It's not one or the other. I think it's both. So I think the same with repulsion and attraction to materials and to systems and to capitalism, perhaps, that I benefit from, and I also hate. And it's a mess, but it's also really orderly, and it's surprising that how much order. Like saying that there is a mess, but also I don't know if the shit hasn't hit the fan potentially completely for us here. And maybe it would not hit in the way that we expect, because as we know, there's a lot of forces. So even the fan, so I'm interested in this duality always, even in my drawings. So it's always not one thing. It's always one thing and the other. Mm-hmm. And things they're on a scale. They're not one thing. That's why I also don't see my work as a capitalist critique. It's more observation of my place and our place within systems, mm-hmm. and maybe trying to kind of get some power back, even though I feel very powerless in the face of big systems. I think there's always that. I think arts in general, there's a lot of push-pull. I think it's a big subject in art. It's duality and clash and push-pull, and even from background, foreground to so many examples. So it's a good art subject, I guess.
Thanks. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about materials, and one particular material, or a lot of materials that you use in your films, installations, in your works. They tell a story, or not one story, many stories maybe. One that can branch out and have a lot of meanings within it. I specifically put my ring on with a pearl.
Oh, the pearl.
The pearl.
But it's a perfect one.
Yes, it's a perfect one. But maybe you can tell the story about or what the pearl in your video No Nose Knows is telling us.
I think, again, I think the interpretation is free for whoever. So I don't think what I thought when I made the work kind of is its own entity. So, and then people can read it in the way that they think, and shouldn't maybe be so like relying on the artists to tell them what it's about. Yes. So, but for me, and I don't even remember what I thought when I made it. I can look at my notes that I never look back to, and think about all the different thoughts that I have. But at that point, the meaning is in the viewer, really. But the catalyst, maybe, for that piece was the pearl, because it embodied, this like acceleration of nature, cultured pearl. So acceleration of nature, and how something that is actually like the mucus of an animal could then be worth, a lot of money, and like this mechanism behind creating value. Human value to things, monetary value or cultural value, or so the pearl was so funny because it's an allergy of this oyster, and then you kind of like induce this allergy, and now you have a whole system of sorting and assigning value to different shapes and all that, so it becomes almost like its own currency.
But also there's this parallel where this allergic reaction that is caused by inserting another piece of muscle.
Cannibalism.
Exactly. But then also the woman in the video, she's sneezing meals onto plates and tables. So she's also having this allergic reaction somehow. But
because the piece later on, and again, this is an idea. I don't know if I had it before I made the piece or after. I don't remember. But that the shape of the muscle, it's this mirror shape. So, and I also thought about this fantasy of like, if you dig a hole all the way, you get to the other part of the planet. So this piece's shape is this parallel. So you have the kind of allergy-inducing thing in the oyster or the mussel, and then it also happens in the in the office space, this like environmental allergy kind of thing. And also the fact and fiction, because part of it is film in a real factory, and then part filmed in my studio factory. So.
And we are also here, by the way, in a factory. This used to be a tonnet factory, where I told you, where they produce tables and chairs. Speaking about holes and tunnels and maybe little gaps in the wall, in floors, in the ceiling, this is a motif you use a lot. I was, of course, thinking about peep shows. I was thinking about the camera obscura, where there is also a hole. So there are certain motifs, like also the cherries, that you will find in the exhibition. You just said you want to dig a hole.
I have a thing with holes.
You have a thing with holes, Why do you have a thing with holes? Well,
I don't know.
Well, so I was just pointing that out because you will see that throughout the exhibition that you play with certain kind of motifs. For example, also this eruptive sneeze that the woman sneezes those meals that nobody eats. So this is one of your favorite motifs, or the sneeze. So I found it also in clownery or in slapstick, in comedies, those sneezes that are eruptive, but also explosive. And so this is very a bodily thing that one sees upstairs in the exhibition and also kind of feels within the body. Is that something you wanted to...
I mean, I think holes are, everywhere. I mean, we're made of tiny holes and big holes. We all come out of holes,
particles.
And we see through holes. So I think it's maybe it's also there's like a lot of phallic symbols, but then this is there is also a word for the opposite of phallic, like the feminine of phallic. It's ionic or something. I'm sorry. So there's that, but we really experience the world through holes, and are born through. Although I was born in cesarean, so maybe I never experienced that whole birth. So maybe that's part.
Well,
there's a whole theory there, of lack of primary lack of holes.
Yeah. Probably like. When I was making a photo of there, because there is this a video installation of yours where you can look into the hole of an open mouth. The installation is called Lips, and you have to go very close, and then you see a hole. It's almost like a glory hole, which is not a word that you might know, but it's more an American word, or
Glory?
glory hole.
Glory hole.
Glory hole.
Okay, sorry. Not caloric hole.
No.
Okay.
So when you come close, then you look inside and you see an orgy of colors and various body parts, which is quite funny as well. And again, there is this hole, but this time you go with your eye almost to kiss the lips to see the video inside. Can you elaborate a little bit on your idea of why you came to show all those separate body parts and why they are so busily doing stuff?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting because at first I didn't think about to show it inside the lips. I wanted to. It was like an in-between video. Mm-hmm. And I love this texture that I've been making from, since I was in art school. So this kind of pastry-like texture, and I really like the idea. I think about environments as like psychological spaces, like I think a lot of artists do. So it was a way to almost like paint the background and kind of touch every part and show the kind of that labor, how we are kind of embedded in everything. So that texture I really liked. And then I made some photos with these body parts kind of sticking through these things, and then I make the video and then kind of put it to rest for a little bit, and then suddenly I was like, what a stupid idea would be to show it inside the lips, And like all my ideas that ended up being like maybe like good ideas always started as me thinking, what a silly idea, Like it's too stupid, and end up actually being good. So that's for all the artists and creative people. When you think you have a silly idea, maybe it's a good one.
Well, it's one of my favorite works in the show, so I encourage you to really take your time and look through the lips. Maybe let's talk about something about humor, which is a recurring element in your art. How do you see humor functioning as a tool, maybe?
Yeah. I think it's like a tool for like a detachment from things that maybe are not so fun. I think humor, I don't necessarily intend something to be funny, but I think that when it's an unexpected mix of things, could be very scary, and you freeze or you laugh. So I think humor kind of comes out of unexpected and not exactly knowing how to react. Sorry, I'm just...
I know, it's kind of strange, but I think we can be heard good.
Yeah, I know. No, my brain is like
Your work often explores the absurdities of labor and capitalism, highlighting the relationships between people, materials, and production processes. How do you think these themes have evolved in your work over time, and what do you hope that viewers take away?
Yeah, the materials. Sorry, my brain. I was just thinking because
No,
I have, 10
do you think
ADD.
those topics like labor and capitalism are again evolving in your work? Is that something that?
Yeah. Yeah, we see where definitely. I think each piece has really like a specific exploration. Or I said like a catalyst of something that I like to look at closer and make more visible for me to understand and engage with. So I'm working on a new video, and it's about specific things. also. And it's always an evolution, you know, even from this piece. Now I have to think about, like, Mary's Cherries, which was about this, cherries and different, like, you know, artificial and natural and all these things. And then I found out about this hair tonic that you know, make your hair grows and cure baldness. And so that was a product in the world. So, you know, and the maraschino cherry is also a product in the world, but it's, you know, very different than a hair growing tonic. So yeah, there's definitely an evolution.
Mika, you together with the New York Association, that's a long name, I have to read it, Inner City Green Team, Economic and Environmental Development, and the designer Gary Dusak, you collect plastic packaging, shred it, and use it to create sculptures, lamp sculptures, may I say so, titled Lampshares, or light sculptures, in combination with climbing invasive plants that you find in a forest. So plastic is almost a kind of raw material nowadays. And what drew you to work with plastic, and how do you think this material, often seen as waste, can shift our understanding of value and sustainability in the world?
For some time, I've been trying to change the way I work in the studio, and not just reflect on how messed up it is, but actually try to work in different ways and use kind of my artist imagination or innovation or whatever way of thinking, not just to, you know, like critique outside, but also try to find out different ways to make things. And I was asked actually to design a bar, and that
the Rottenberg,
and then this restaurant chandelier. Anyway, I kind of was asked to design something, and that really was really interesting for me, because apparently designers think a lot more about materials than artists, which is really surprising. Just in the conversation, there's a lot more conversation around materials, because, you know, I think, of course, art is psychological, and you're not really, it's more about the effect of the material than the actual material. But a little surprising, because, you know, contemporary art is conceptual, so it's like a conceptual, almost like blind spot or something. I love color, and I love how, like, toxicity looks like, you know. I mean, even in nature, of course, like, toxic animals are very, like, visually attractive. So I didn't want to necessarily give that up and become like a hippie artist.
Okay.
Although I'm a hippie inside, but I still wanted to, you know, engage with the world rather than, like, cancel it. So for me, plastic was perfect. And then I came into this TikTok video of precious plastics, which is a social media, internet, you know, system of, like, oh, look at the magic, you can take this waste and turn it into a keychain or something. And the developer of precious plastics, which I forgot his name, but the Dutch guy, he is talking about, there was like a call for designers to come and work with this material. It's almost like, yeah, like a natural resource at this point. So I was like, kind of, I was up for the challenge of seeing, oh, what can I make with this? And so then I was like, okay, what is Precious Plastics New York? And it ended up being one person, which is Gary Dusak. Yeah. So it's really undeveloped there. Like in Europe, I think there's a lot more thinking, but about waste management and all that. Of course, you know, plastic shouldn't be made disposable like that. Like, disposability doesn't work, because you know, our planet is not disposable, and we can't really go anywhere else. Like, I know Musk is trying, but I think he's realizing he's failing, and Greenland is maybe easier. But you know, I think that that was a material that, you know, because I don't feel that art should for me, my work is not outside of like the destructive system, it's in it. So working with a material that is a problem, but trying to see, okay, we exist in this like mess. So can we make something from the mess? And it's not like a solution. No, like, and that's where maybe the way that Precious Plastics talks about it is like, okay, everybody should do this and then problem solved. So as an artist, I don't, think in that way. I think, but it's more about, how you use your creativity, I guess, and, thinking in more free ways or different ways to create, different production systems.
When we built up the show, you also said, well, this is, we produce materials, we consume materials, but they also consume us. Mm-hmm. So especially with plastic, we were talking about this microplastic that everybody of us has in our body, like heavily, which you don't know. So it's also invasive, or it's the same with the plants that is invasive in us.
Yeah.
So, and you also said that you were interested in plastic because the light is trapped in it. How did you mean that?
Actually, it wasn't me. It was Heather Davis.
Plastic
matter. She came to visit my studio, and she said something like that, and I was like, okay, I take this. So
there is a book in the exhibition in the garage about Heather Davis, about plastic matter.
Yeah, but it's interesting, the mushrooms and the plastic, and how mushrooms, are resilient and they grow from toxicity.
Yes.
So
it's true.
But I think we should leave time for people to enjoy the work, or not, or
I don't know if we have time for the podium to ask some questions.
Well, I'm around, so
yeah.
I think we have someone here.
Yes.
Maybe one
Nicole.
question, and then we can. I'm available to answer questions
pass on
also.
the
So I wanted to ask you about sound in your work. I think it has always been important, but now today when I saw the spaghetti blockchain, I had the feeling that you're really going into this whole world of ASMR sounds. Yeah, this whole.
Sound is
could you speak a little bit about this?
Yeah, it's interesting that when I went to CERN, and even when they're able to record all these sounds from space, and also the antimatter, but it doesn't exist as an image. Anything that you see that's an image of supposedly antimatter is computer generated, but the sound they can actually hear. It's not the sound of the thing. It's the sound of the waves, the thing shaking, whatever it's doing there. So it's so much of actually like the world is captured, through vibration, and sound is vibration. So I really like that the sound is a material. It's an energy, and it's a material, and it activates other material. So it's a little maybe. Different than just the visual. It adds to the visual. It's always together. Like you cannot, the Big Bang, black holes colliding, they're able to record that, but you cannot see it. And, it's just another way of experiencing.
Any other question, Ramesh? No?
Where is Bachbau and Poe, the band? I tried for some years to just do activism, and I realized I should keep my day job as an artist, and because I'm not a good, because artists, they think about this and maybe this and change your mind, and it's really hard as an activist. You have to really no, we're doing this, So that didn't work well. So, okay. We could just do questions after. I'm happy
exactly
to have
because my colleague just told me we will continue the opening speeches at 7 outside in the entrance hall, And thanks for coming all. I wish you a pleasant evening. Thanks, Mika, for sharing your thoughts. And have a nice evening and enjoy the show. A lot of pleasure to all of us.